our way to do anything.
Right. So given that we think that white's ahead in development, given that black's pieces are at the very least uncoordinated, if not completely jumbled, does this indicate that white should be playing slowly in terms of building it up slowly, or should he be playing very dynamic moves?
He should be playing very dynamic moves.
Okay, and why is that?
Because he's better able to activate his pieces into an attack than black is able to.
And if he doesn't play dynamically, then what happens?
Then black will have time to coordinate his pieces and finish development.
And regroup, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, for example, if we were just to play something like bishop d2, just for argument's sake, then, like you said, black would be able to play king g7 and play rook d8 and develop his knight and then get his rook out, get his queen out, get his knight on h5 protected, and really it would just be a game. But the factors in this position that are in white's favor are that, like you said, he's better developed and black's pieces are... It looked like black's pieces, were placed that way in order to capture a white piece, but they don't really want to be where they are right now. So the question is how to profit from this. So what do you notice first of all from a tactical sense that might stand out to you?
So the knight on d7 is only defended by the queen and is currently under attack by the rook.
Good. Is there something that's defended 0 times?
The knight on h5 is defended 0 times.
And also there's a possibility. Is there something else that's defended 0 times that might come into play?
So the rook on h8. So initially I was thinking something like queen b5, threatening the knight, and then
the bishop, and if the bishop moves, and the knight falls. Yep.
So we're threatening like b4, and then our bishop can be placed on b2.
Yep. That's a very, very good point. But okay, so start thinking about what moves might help in. So give me a couple of candidate moves for what we could do to try to exploit the fact that we have a lead in development.
So something like f4, taking advantage of the knight on h5 wouldn't be that great, because on knight f6 we've just encouraged him to reposition his knight towards the center, and we can't actually bring the queen over there because the knight covers it. So we need to try something like... so we could try something like rook d5, and then we're threatening... we're threatening actually queen b5 is more of a threat, because he has to spend the tempo moving the knight, and then queen b5 threatens the bishop, and if he tries to defend... Oh, it threatens the bishop and the knight. So, yeah, I like rook d5.
Okay, are you sure?
Well, we also need to activate the rook into, given that the king is as exposed as it is, getting the rook on d5 also contributes to using the rook for an attack against the king, in addition to the tactical threats. So that seems sensible, like a sensible plan.
Okay, so rook d5 final answer?
Yes.
Okay, unfortunately it's completely wrong. So, what piece of ours is already developed?
Well, the rook on d is already developed.
Yep. So what pieces are not developed?
Our dark-scored bishop and our rook on a1 are not developed.
So what's the problem with rook d5 tactically? So what is it better?
When he moves the knight, he will be attacking the rook, which means we have to waste a tempo.
Yeah. So the problem is we're basically developing a piece that is already developed, and on d5 it actually doesn't do anything that it didn't do on d1. Because on d5, even though you're attacking the bishop, I mean, at the very least, I can play knight f6 and b6, and then everything's just defended. And then if you play queen b5, I can just, again, the knight on f6 defends the knight on d7, so everything kind of defends each other in a chain. So it doesn't really work. So okay, what else is possible if not rook d5? How do we try to develop our bishop and rook?
We could do a daring pawn sacrifice with b4.
Okay. So
then if bishop takes...
What are the tactics there now? What are the tactics there?
Oh, no, that doesn't work out, because on bishop takes...
Careful. You got if you're going to make a daring pawn sacrifice, you have to see the whole line through, so...
Okay, so b4...
Start it out. So b4. So assume take, because if he doesn't take, okay, we're just getting a free move to develop our pieces, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so assume he
Okay.
takes. Because, I mean, okay, say he plays, like, bishop e7, then what do we play?
Then probably just bishop b2.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then we're defending our knight, and then we're getting ready to hop our knight to d5, maybe, and attack his rook, and then his knight's going to be hanging, and everything's going to be hanging. So, yeah, okay, so pretty much the only thing we have to worry about after b4 is that he has to take, right? Okay,
Right.
So b4, he takes, okay, now pieces are hanging, right? c3's hanging, d7's lose, h5 might be a problem. Okay, so what happens after b4, bishop takes?
So bishop takes. We can't just defend with the bishop, obviously, so
Right,
we have
because
to
he's
move the
attacking
knight.
twice, right?
Yep.
Okay,
So something like knight d5 threatens the bishop and gets the knight more active.
okay, but rather than meet the threat to our knight with moving it, is there a counter threat that we can make that might be stronger?
Okay, so b4, bishop takes b4, and then we can play.
But what was the move we wanted to play all along?
I wanted to play queen b6 all along.
b5, right?
Yeah, queen b5.
Okay, so now, does that work?
Okay, so b4, bishop takes b4, queen b5.
Yep.
If he takes the knight, he's on the rook.
Mhm.
So, but then we can play. Let's see. We don't have the intervening move of playing something like bishop a3 because then he can interpose the knight and we're no longer threatening it.
Okay, okay. So let's start from the beginning. So b4, right? Bishop takes b4, queen b5. Okay, so now what is he taking the knight with? Start with the simpler one. Start with, say, queen takes knight.
So on queen takes knight,
Okay, so what's he threatening right there?
so he'll be threatening the rook on a1.
Mhm. So is there a way we can defend the rook whilst simultaneously gaining a tempo?
Oh, so then we're in the position to play. Oh no, we can't actually play bishop b2 because the bishop on b4 will be blocking communication between the queen on b5.
True, but can we play the bishop someplace else?
So bishop. Oh, like bishop d2, and then the rooks are connected and defend each other.
And then what are we threatening there?
Oh, so the queen has to move, and then we're threatening to take on b4 because then we'll be hitting it twice.
And then what else is hanging?
And also the knight on d7 will be.
And what else is hanging?
And then the knight on h5 will also be hanging.
So after that position of bishop d2, tell me everything that's hanging.
Okay, the knight on h5,
Yes.
the bishop on b4
Yes.
after the queen moves,
Yes.
and the knight on d7
Yes.
are all hanging.
And it's hard to save three pieces at the same time, right?
Yes,
Okay.
or impossible, hopefully.
You'd have to be some wizard to be able to do that. So what about bishop takes?
So okay, on bishop takes knight.
Okay, now.
Then now we can play bishop b2.
Is there something better?
If we.
Is there a way to develop with tempo? Where are the pieces?
Oh, so at that point we can play bishop a3 with check.
Good. And then
Activating our bishop, and then.
where does the king go?
Oh, so the king has to go on to light squares.
Which square?
So either e8 or g8
Or
f. Oh, so he'd either go to f7 or g7.
Okay, so what happens if he goes to some of those squares?
So he can, if he goes to some of those squares, we can activate the queen even more. So we could play. Wait, we haven't played queen b5 yet in this line, have we?
Oh, yes, we have.
Oh, we have.
Start from the beginning. So start from the beginning, from this position. So
Okay.
what was the moves?
So it was b4,
Yes.
bishop takes b4,
Yes.
and then we played queen b5
Yes.
immediately.
And then he played what?
And then he played bishop takes knight.
Good.
So now,
Okay, and now what do we
knight-
play?
So the knight on h5 is on pre. So if we play bishop a3,
Yes.
and if the king moves to, for instance, e8, we take the knight with check.
Yes, and then?
So then the king has to move.
Yep.
And where does the king go? If he goes onto a dark square, then we can get the... I can't calculate this well. um, let's see. So the king. So after queen takes h5, if the king had moved to e8, then the king can either go back to f8.
Can it?
Nope. It's our bishop's on a3, so
Yep.
it has to go to d8.
Yep.
And then we can play. I can't see this far.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter because there's nothing clear-cut here, but the problem is that we've got our piece back and all of his pieces are still undefended, and now his king's in the middle being double-barreled by our rooks because rook ac1 is coming. Right? And then it pins the bishop on c3, so the bishop on c3 is probably just going to be lost. So the fact is we got our piece back that we sacrificed on c3, and we're going to probably win the bishop on c3 at the very least, if not the knight on d7 as well. So yeah, there's no need to really calculate that far, but you just have to realize that position is good. It's realize that position is good.
Right.
So, okay. So yeah, so basically the idea is the planning says that we want to play b4. The question is, we have to tactically justify it, and the answer is that we did tactically justify it. So what ended up happening in the game was white played b4, black took obviously because he had to, and then queen b5 was the right move. So we don't want to waste the tempo by moving this knight, but fortunately we can play queen b5. I mean, it just looks so good that if black vacates this diagonal, that this check has to be lethal. I mean, like you mentioned, we get this piece back with check, and everything is just happening. So black preferred to sacrifice his queen, which is something you also have to consider. So he took on c3, and then on bishop d2, he took on d2. Okay, so what happens here? Because remember, black was up a piece here, so he took a piece, and now he's taking a rook. So what happens here, though?
Okay, so so we may just. Oh, so if we play rook takes queen, bishop takes rook, and then we take on d7, we're threatening the bishop as well. But then he takes the pawn with check to get out of the danger. If we play.
So okay, I mean, rook takes queen is pretty much going to be played, right? Because there's no benefit in giving an intermediate check because it just allows black to put a knight on f6, right? So rook takes queen is pretty much guaranteed here. We don't have to really calculate anything else. So rook takes queen, bishop takes rook. Okay, now we have choices, right? We can take the knight on d7, or we can take the knight on h5. So you notice that if we take the knight on d7, we attack the bishop, right?
Right.
But then he can move it out with a gain of tempo. But yes. Okay, so he takes the pawn with a gain of tempo. Then what? Then where does our king
go? So pieces are being traded off, and pretty quick we're going to be taking even another piece. So maybe we want to. Well, with two rooks still on the board, I don't know. Do we want to centralize our king or not?
That's a good question.
I would think yes, because actually we can keep it on f7 or not f7, f8. F1, whatever. F1, and then it's still relatively safe and free from attacks by rooks, but it's centralized anyway.
No, you're right. So yeah, so rook takes queen, bishop takes, and now the right knight to take is indeed this one, because we gain a tempo. And also it keeps our queen on the 7th, which means this king is stuck on the back rank, and these rooks are gonna have big problems getting out. So queen takes d7 is right, bishop takes e3, and now king f1 is the correct move. Because this king is actually fairly safe on f1. On h1, there could be potential back rank issues at some point in the future, but f1 is more accurate. And now, what are we threatening after king f1?
We're threatening queen f5, forking knight and king.
Good. And if he plays some move like, say, knight g7 or something?
Then we're threatening... We should be able to kick the king and then fork king and bishop, maybe?
Can we? Because the
No,
knight
I
would be
guess
on
it's-
g7, so it defends e6.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
what do we want to activate?
Oh, so we want to get our other rook in the game.
Mm-hmm. So how do we
So
do
we
it the best way?
we could do that with tempo by playing rook e1.
Yeah.